Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. We're bringing back another episode of the Girl Talk series. It's been a minute. I didn't end up creating an episode of this series in January just because I wasn't really feeling it. I didn't have any ideas. If you're new around here, this is a series that I do monthly, usually, where basically we just sit down, we have a heart-to-heart chat. There's usually a beverage involved. Today we have matcha. I'm pretty much trying to cut out all other forms of caffeine besides matcha, so that's the wave we're on. This is kind of going to be a dating focused episode, and the first topic that I really want to dive into is red flags. We know them, we love them. Most of us have seen way too many of them in our lifetime. So we all know like the obvious red flags, right? Like that we've known for years, you know, like people being super secretive or flirting with other people or cheating on you or being a compulsive liar. Like those red flags are clear, obvious things. But the things I'm going to talk about today are not necessarily universal red flags and not so blatant. They're more like personal red flags. Like things that I have learned now are personal red flags, personal like, oh, I do not want this and I will likely, you know, cut someone off because of this, even though they're not like universal toxic traits. The first one is something that I have learned is quite honestly the number one determining factor for whether or not I really respect somebody. And it doesn't have to just be in a romantic context. It is in a friendship context, in a family context, in any context. This is the number one thing that differentiates people who I'm like, wow, I really respect you and I admire you, versus people that I'm just kind of like I don't have much respect for you, to be completely honest. Obviously, I give every human being basic respect. That's not what we're talking about here. I'm not being mean to anyone because of this, but in terms of like close relationships, you know, romantic relationship or like a best friend, this is like needs to be on the list, checkbox. And that is a growth versus fixed mindset. So the red flag here would be a fixed mindset. The turn on / green flag would be a growth mindset. There's two types of people in this world, okay? There's people with a fixed mindset and people with a growth mindset. The basic differentiation between these two groups of people is that people with a growth mindset view themselves as someone who can change. They see the world from the lens of like constantly wanting to improve, grow, and evolve, become a better human being. They care about things like working towards goals or just trying to improve their lives and the lives of people around them. And they have the philosophy that if there's something about themselves they don't like or something that they're doing that's harming other people, they have the ability to change. That's the biggest thing, is they believe that it's possible for them to change. They're in the driver's seat of their own life. They're not just letting life whip them around like they're a fucking passenger with their head flowing in the wind. I don't know why I'm like picturing a dog in the back seat. I love dogs. Nothing against dogs. The fixed mindset is someone who really has the belief of like, this is how I've been my entire life. This is how I've been for the past several years. I can't change it. They really resign themselves to the traits and the things about themselves that they view as fact. They have no desire or push towards growth. They aren't trying to learn. They're not progressing forward in any way. They're just really like, this is what it is. This is what my life is. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. I'm not going to change anything. And it sounds so ridiculous and closed off and closed-minded when you say it like that, but the unfortunate reality is that this is how, in my opinion, most people, especially most adults that I see, go through life. Whether they're aware of it or not, I don't know, but a lot of people have resigned themselves to the way they are and have no interest in growing or evolving, even if the way they are might be harmful to themselves, to others. And I want to specify here that there's a difference between self-acceptance and a fixed mindset. Self-acceptance, perfectly healthy, absolutely incredible. Self-acceptance would be something like, my nose looks like this and I don't really want to change it, so I just accept it and I love myself as I am. Lovely. Versus a fixed mindset would be something more like, oh, I keep insulting my significant other and it's really hurting their feelings, but like, I just can't help myself. This is how I am. And they're just gonna have to learn to deal with it or dump me. Like, hello, are you literally insane? Why would you have that perspective when there's so obviously a change that you can make that will have a hugely positive impact on a person you love, but instead you're just like, this is just the way I am. Sorry, deal with it, take it or leave it. What a resigned way to go through life, never growing, never evolving, never becoming better, just kind of being like, this is how I am. I've stayed up till 5 a.m. eating cake and brownies for the last 2 years. This is just how I am. Do I feel like shit? Absolutely, but I'm just gonna keep going because this is what I do. It's just not a healthy or productive way to exist in the world. And I've found it to be very frustrating in relationships because it prevents growing in that relationship when your partner has that perspective of just like, there's nothing nothing that can change here. There's nothing I can do here. If we have issues, it just means we're incompatible. Like, that's not the case. Part of being in a relationship is having issues, working through them, and coming out the other side with both of you being improved as human beings and also your relationship being improved. But when you're dating somebody with this like super fixed mindset, it prevents all of that. Suddenly, every disagreement is just like a butting of heads with no resolution and no progress and nothing, because no matter how many times you try to express to this person, hey, this thing that you do really hurts me, or hey, I can't continue in this relationship if you're going to do XYZ, which should be things that you are comfortable bringing up to your partner and that you can work through together, you can't bring any of that shit up because this person's just gonna come back at you and be like, well, this is how I've always been. This is how I act. This is how I react. You can't handle that. Let's just break up. Why would you want to exist in a relationship like that? You shouldn't. I also just find it extremely unattractive when people have such a backseat mentality in their own lives. Like, one of the things that I find most attractive is things like drive, ambition, dreaming big, like having the audacity to have a big vision and a big dream that you're working towards in your life or that you want for yourself in your life. Working towards something with passion, excitement, drive is one of the things that I love the most about a potential partner. So not having that, and instead of having someone who's so stuck in their ways and so not trying to move forward in any aspect of their life, just going through the fucking motions day to day, that's like a death sentence for a relationship for me. I don't want to be around that, because not only is it unattractive, but also it's not encouraging me. Like, in my opinion, a great relationship should be both of you working towards things, encouraging each other along the way, being each other's biggest fan, in each other's corner while you're chasing these things that you want out of your life, so you can grow and like flourish a life together that's personally fulfilling for both of you and where both of you are growing. And that's, like, to me, what I'm looking for. And so number one biggest red flag nowadays is a fixed mindset. I won't do it. I'll never do it again. For any of my like regular viewers, just want to put a disclaimer out there. No, me and my boyfriend have not broken up. I'm talking about all of this like very hypothetically, very high level. We're going to talk about like him a little bit more later, but don't think that just because I'm talking about red flags, like dating red flags, doesn't mean I'm back in the dating pool at all. These are just things that I've been reflecting on. Another thing that I personally think to me is a red flag / a trait that I do not love in other people is people who pride themselves on being unfiltered. Before you go to the comments ready to attack me and say like, well, you're ugly, shut up, because maybe you're someone who's identified as unfiltered and that hits a pain point for you, allow me to explain myself, okay? I think honesty is important. We all know honesty is important. It's a virtue, whatever the fuck, like, not me calling it a virtue and then saying whatever the fuck. We all know honesty is important, right? We value honesty. We think it's great. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, okay? Honesty is great. Here's the thing though. Honesty is great when it's constructive. I personally do not think that every single thought that enters into your brain needs to come out of your mouth. Hot take, I know some people really function like that. Every single thing that pops into their brain comes spewing out their mouth. That is how you end up doing emotional damage to people without even realizing. Point blank, period. When I think back to like childhood and the insulting or hurtful things that stick in my brain and have affected my psyche for years to come, so many of those things were throwaway comments that the person who said it probably didn't think twice about it after it came out their mouth. And it's true that like you can't control the way that people react to you, and that, you know, sometimes you're going to unintentionally hurt people's feelings and it just kind of is what it is. But I think intentionality with words is underrated. And this is something that I'm really trying to work on too. Your word is so strong, so powerful, can affect other people, can affect you. And it's not something that you should just be doing unconsciously. You should think before you speak. It's not always the easiest thing to do. Like sometimes we do be speaking before we even process what we're thinking, right? But I think it's important. And I kind of hate people who are like, I can't help it. I'm just unfiltered. I think it and I say it. Because there's times where it's like, I didn't ask for this opinion. I didn't ask for this feedback. And you unwarranted, unsolicitedly giving me advice, feedback, insults. Honestly, I didn't ask for that shit and I don't want it. And quite frankly, if you're just so unfiltered that I'm gonna put on an outfit and you're gonna be like, oh my God, that's fucking ugly. Like, sorry, that's just the truth. I don't want you around me. Point blank, period. I don't want that type of feedback. I don't want to be nervous around you that you're gonna spew out some random like unthought out shit. Like, I just don't like people who are that reactive and that unpredictable in a way that makes you feel unsafe or just like really constantly on guard, because like literally they're gonna say anything that pops into their brain. To me, that is a super unattractive trait in somebody. I just think that people need to check themselves a little and realize that they don't need to be talking every moment of every day, that sometimes the best thing they can do in a conversation is just sit there and listen, and that maybe sometimes you should keep your unasked for opinions and thoughts to yourself. There's a time and a fucking place to speak your mind, and it's not all the time. You need to gauge the situation, you need to gauge the relationship, you need to gauge everything. Just think before you fucking speak, because you're affecting people all the time. And to me, I just don't think it's worth potentially really hurting somebody's feelings in the name of being unfiltered. And again, there's a time and a place. This whole channel is my opinions, my stories, my thoughts, whatever. This is a good opportunity for me to just lay it all out there and say my honest opinions, versus like my friend is trying on a top that she really loves. Maybe I don't like it, but she's really psyched about it. She hasn't asked for my opinion, okay? Am I gonna go out of my way to be like, I hate to be like a downer, but to be completely honest and transparent with you, I just don't think that looks that cute. Am I gonna do that? Am I gonna do that in the dressing room and embarrass my friend and potentially harm her confidence for no fucking reason? No, I'm not. And that's why I think that people who pride themselves on just being so unfiltered and like everything that I think I say, like it just comes out. That's why I hate those fucking people. And that was harsh, and if you're one of them, I'm sorry. Okay, so the next thing that I really wanted to talk about is first dates. I feel like I have kind of an uncommon perspective on first dates. People tend to say that first dates are stressful, awkward, like the worst part, the most nerve-wracking part of a relationship. And my hot take is that I completely disagree. In my opinion, first dates are easy because I find that it's easy to have a good first date. I feel like I'm just a pro at first dates at this point, and I don't know whether this is a good or a bad thing about myself, but I feel like no matter who I'm on a date with, no matter how compatible we are, how much we have in common, I can make that first date pleasant, I can make it go well, and I can leave the other person with the impression that this was a solid, great first date. Obviously, there are exceptions, right? If I'm on a date with someone who I just think is a horrible fucking person, I'm not gonna go along with it. I'm not gonna do the pleasantries. I'm not gonna agree with their opinions. Thankfully, I haven't been on a date with someone that horrible, but I definitely have been on dates with people where I'm just like, haha, we're not compatible, and I know it in my brain, but you don't realize, because I will mold myself to that other person to get through that situation without a lot of discomfort or conflict. Because quite honestly, like, you don't have to see the person after that date. I think I've just always had the perspective of like, okay, a first date is a fixed amount of time, maybe it's a few hours. If you really don't like the person, you never have to fucking talk to them again. But like, usually I'd rather spare myself the awkwardness and the discomfort of the date going badly, so I will just make it go well. And I think that this is not surprising, because I've talked on this channel before about how I have people-pleasing tendencies, or I used to have more people-pleasing tendencies. They're definitely still there, but I think they've gotten better. This aligns with that perfectly, in my opinion, where I would really just mold myself to the person I was on a date with. And I feel like I do that in general more than I would like to. But in terms of it being a survival mechanism for getting through a kind of questionable first date, I'm okay with doing it. Because honestly, I just don't think it's worth the discomfort when you potentially never have to talk to or see that person again once the date's over. And I don't know whether this really is a positive or negative thing about myself, that I can be such a shapeshifter, and you know, that maybe I've given people who I really don't align with their beliefs or whatever, maybe I've given those people the impression that I was okay with those things and approved of those things, and maybe that's bad or wrong. I don't know. I'm not sure whether it's a bad thing or just kind of a neutral thing that I automatically would do, but I really do think it was a self-preservation tactic, and it was okay, I'm in this scenario already, I'm with this person already, I don't have an easy out, so let me just make things go as smoothly as possible. And I really don't think it's hard to make things go smoothly, because a first date is such a specific circumstance where both you and the other person really want it to go, if not well, at least decently. Not to mention, in a first date environment, both of you are kind of on your best behavior. And this is why I think it's so easy for a first date to go well, in my opinion, is that both of you are kind of presenting an entry-level introduction version of yourself. You're not likely pulling out your most controversial opinions or your harsh harshest hot takes. Chances are you're keeping in kind of lukewarm territory. You're both not being very confrontational or aggressive. You're being soft with each other, chances are. Like, if someone says something you disagree with on a first date, you're probably not gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, you're insane. Because of the first date environment, you're more likely to play off differences or potential sources of confrontation in just kind of like a glazed over, jokey type of way. And you tend to be a little more receptive to those differences and just kind of give each other a little bit more leeway, a little more acceptance, because you're, again, in this first date environment, you probably don't know the person that well. You're getting to know them, and you're really not going to want to be super confrontational or abrasive or just do anything that could be seen as like too intense or too aggressive. And again, is this a positive? Is this a negative? I don't fucking know, but it is just something that I think is very specific to first dates. I think it could be bad if this continues too far into your getting to know each other, because you don't want to be like going along on dates, both of you on your best behavior, both of you not trying to ruffle any feathers. That can lead to a very passive, glazing over type of relationship where you never have confrontation, you never address differences or express like your values and your priorities. And that I think can turn into something really toxic. Like, even though on a first date, chances are you're being more polite about potential red flags that you might be noticing or differences between you and this potential partner, I do think it's important to still be storing all of that shit in the back of your brain. And even though it might not be the fucking time to start a confrontation with this person about something you don't agree with, I still think you should be taking mental notes, because if this person is a potential partner, you might want to notice some of those red flags and keep them in mind when you're making decisions about like, okay, do I want a second date with this person? I think first dates are over dramatized a little bit. Like, in my opinion, the stakes are low. Like, you don't probably have a huge attachment to this person, and it's a very, very civil environment unless you're on a first date with someone who's, I don't know, just has no social cues and is just off the rails. It's a very civil type of environment because, again, chances are both of you are being pretty kind, pretty accepting, pretty nice, and you're kind of letting things slide more than you normally would. So in my opinion, the first date's the easiest part. Then when you actually get to fucking know the person, it's more likely for those differences, those sources of contention to really bubble up to the surface. And in my opinion, that's the true test of compatibility. But a first date is just kind of like a very surface level first meeting, like tip of the iceberg type of encounter that I don't think is that hard or that scary. Okay, the last little topic that I wanted to touch on in this episode is how living together has changed my relationship. So I do in fact have a boyfriend. Yes, applause, applause, applause. And he's currently living with me. Basically, he moved to LA, and the idea was that he would live with me temporarily. It was originally only supposed to be like for the summer, but he's still living with me now, so we're almost coming up on a year. I love having him here, and I honestly think that our relationship has improved exponentially since he's moved in, which thank fucking God, because I'm a big believer that like living together is a great, I don't want to say test, but yeah, test for a relationship. If you potentially see serious potential in someone, you should be able to coexist in the same environment for an extended period of time. My favorite parts about our relationship are the moments of companionship and friendship and day-to-day just like company. And this is, I think, the beauty of living with someone, and it is the thing that I think is the biggest positive of living with a partner. You get fucking comfortable and you have each other in those comfortable moments as sources of comfort, and just like it's a new level of intimacy, and not even in like the regular intimacy sense, in like the I'm pooping with the door open sense. literally in that sense. It gets rid of this getting ready part of like dating that, I don't know, I couldn't have ever imagined this level of comfort and just being okay with somebody seeing me at every time of the day in every form, whether I have makeup on or have makeup off, whether my hair's a mess or it looks good, whether I'm dressed up or in a fucking pair of boxers and a tank top. This boy sees me in all of those forms, and that's part of what you get from living together. There's no sense of, oh, I'm getting ready to see this person, oh, I'm gonna smell perfect, I'm gonna style my hair for an hour. All of that goes out the fucking window. Because while you're doing that shit, this partner has potentially seen you before, during, and after the process. So by all means, I still love getting ready, and that's mostly for myself. But the sense of like getting ready before a date and stuff like that, it just changes when you're with each other like 24/7. And not that we're with each other 24/7, but you know what I mean. And realizing that this has been a huge change since living together has really made me reflect on how, I'm gonna say neurotic, I was towards the beginning of our relationship in terms of wanting to constantly be like as perfect as possible when I saw this guy. When we started seeing each other, I was still in college, and I remember that every time he was gonna come over, I set aside hours to not only meticulously put myself together, but also I would like deep clean my apartment. Like I would make sure everything was neat, tidy, fresh. I wanted like the most put together version of myself to bring to the table. This is one of those things where I'm not quite sure what my motivation was. It's not something that I can really psychoanalyze myself on. Like looking back on that time, I'm like, I don't know whether this was like some sort of obsessive catering to the male gaze where I just wanted him to see me as perfect as possible, and I was like really consumed by his perception of me, and that's obviously not the healthiest thing in the world. I'm not sure whether it was that or if it was just genuinely like I want to present the version of myself that I like the most and that I'm the most proud of to this person, whether he cares or not, whether it makes a difference to him or not. I feel better if I show up as my best self. I don't know which one it was, to be completely honest. Was I doing it for me? Was I doing it for him? Couldn't tell you. I don't know the motivation there. I just know that it was something that I was doing, and it wasn't really something that I could entirely explain or justify. And I remember him even being like, you know, you don't have to clean your entire apartment every time I'm coming over, right? Like, I'm just here to see you. I don't give a shit if everything's been scrubbed to the nines. And I think I responded basically just being like, I know you don't really care, but I care. Like, that's pretty much what I said. So maybe it was really something that I was more so doing for myself. Honestly, I don't know. But it's just so funny now from this way more like comfortable having a friendship and close bond with this person perspective, where it's like, I'm not so consumed by him viewing me and thinking, oh my God, she's incredible, she's beautiful. I don't care so much about his romantic perception of me because we're bros now, like we're best friends now, which I think is such a beautiful and wonderful thing. And it doesn't mean that the romance is dead and that we're not attracted to each other anymore and that it's just become a friendship. Like, no, it's just something that's been added to our relationship, and this level of like comfort and platonic intimacy is my new favorite part of this relationship. And it's easier for me to feel comfortable, at ease, and genuinely be myself without having to constantly filter everything through this perspective of like, okay, how am I presenting myself? Am I being attractive or interesting or, you know, alluring right now? And what can I do to be more that way? Like, that's just not even a consideration at this point, which I think is actually a great thing that I'm not like constantly preoccupied with that. Okay. That's kind of all I wanted to talk about in this episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know I had fun filming it. Let me know down in the comments if you have any thoughts or hot takes on any of these subjects. If this is the first video you've seen from me and you've made it all the way to the end, you probably liked it, so you should totally subscribe and give the video a thumbs up while you're at it, because it really does help to support me and my channel, and I would appreciate it so much. Also, you don't want to miss the next episode because, like I said, this is a semi-monthly series. If you want to catch up on past episodes that you haven't seen, I have an entire Girl Talk playlist on my channel that you can go check out, and I will see you guys in a few days with another one. Bye!
Yeah, his baby said that they don't got a future like it burns. So give him something worse to kill his head with, make him forget somehow. Might be that another day she would have wished he stayed, but they're done.